to continue now talking about Greece, since that's what's making headlines in a lot of newspapers around the world. Florence Villemino here with the International Press Review.
That's right. Now, lots of papers are focusing on that referendum scheduled for Sunday. Let's start with a cartoon, actually, in China Daily that shows just what's at stake in this referendum. You can see here Greece drowning while it's holding up this ballot box. It's a really kind of a make or break moment for Greece. It's a crucial moment for Greece, but also for Europe. That's something that's coming out a lot in the press today. Iketemerini, that's a Greek center-right paper, says that the Greek situation is an existential moment for the European project in general. And Iketemerini is pretty pessimistic. It says that the Greek debt crisis is threatening to damage the post-war dream of an ever closer union, and we're already starting to see the scars of all this. The damage has already been done, according to Iketemerini. First of all, there's a lot of distrust between many European countries, and this comes at a time when Europe is facing a lot of threats along its borders. For instance, we've been seeing the migrant crisis in the Mediterranean, but you also have pressure along the border with Ukraine.
Now, the blame game already has begun, as you'd expect. Many conservative papers blaming Alexis Tsipras himself.
That's right. Now, the Wall Street Journal, the American paper, is not at all a big fan of the Greek prime minister. You can see they're pretty harsh here in their editorial. They liken the Greek situation to a suicide, and you can see suicide isn't painless. Greeks are responsible for their pain, particularly Tsipras, according to this editorial. Whatever the Greeks choose on Sunday, it's clear that they can no longer hold the rest of Europe hostage, according to the Wall Street Journal. It's a tragedy for the poorest Greeks, but better for Greece to serve Europe as a lesson than as a model. So that's one opinion. You also have the flip side, of course, in many papers. The Huffington Post, for instance, today is really critical of the Troika for bullying Greece. It says that back in January, Greeks voted for a government on this platform of anti-austerity. And now what the Troika is saying is they're sending a very clear message. They're saying you can hold these free elections, but the government you elect can only do what we say. And so you can see this very pessimistic title as well. This is what the end of European democracy looks like.
Now we're going to move on to Israel. Florence, papers reacting to this series of Islamic State group attacks on Egyptian military and police targets in the Sinai province.
That's right. Lots of attention in the Israeli press today. Yediot Aharonot says that this terror offensive was aimed at undermining the Egyptian president, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, but it's also a serious threat to Israel. And you can see their analysis says that basically the Islamic State group demonstrated some very impressive fighting abilities. For instance, they used simultaneous suicide bombing, and one day this could be directed towards Israel.
The Israeli paper is reporting that ISIS poses a direct threat, but also creates a collateral threat to Israel.
That's right. If we go back to Yediot Aharonot, there's a very interesting analysis piece that points out that Egypt and Hamas, which have been known as sworn enemies, are actually finding common ground in the fight against ISIS. And Yediot Aharonot talks about reports in Arab papers that say, they talk about a thawing or a honeymoon in relations between Hamas and Egypt. Now, it comes after a long period of bad blood between Hamas and Egypt, especially because Hamas is a subsidiary of the now outlawed Muslim Brotherhood. But now it seems they have a common enemy, therefore they have a mutual interest, and this is also posing a threat to Israel. What's interesting, though, and you can read about this in Haaretz today, is that Israel is actually going to all sorts of lengths to link Hamas to the Sinai attacks. Yesterday, for instance, an Israeli general told Al Jazeera that Hamas had helped the ISIS-affiliated group in carrying out the attacks on these Egyptian troops by supplying them with weapons and other support.
Now we're going to move on to Hillary Clinton and her campaign. This week, the State Department finally released about 3,000 pages of her private emails. Of course, the media's been poring over them.
That's right. Some very interesting details have come out from these emails. These emails date from her first year as Secretary of State. It's a rare glimpse into the daily life of the Secretary of State. From the I guess you could say the sublime to the ridiculous. You can see the Guardian here focusing on some of the details that came out in these emails. She loves iced tea. She doesn't know how to work a fax, though. However, now there's been mocking in the U.S. media as well. Some people comparing her to Veep. This is, sorry, Mother Jones here. Veep is a very popular TV show about a vice president turned president. It's pretty funny. And if you want to read more, read in Mother Jones. They're likening her to Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Very funny.
Thank you very much indeed, Flo, with a look there at what the international press is saying this morning.